Welcome back, everybody. It is September. With Labor Day being as late as possible, this is likely still a week where you have a renter in for many of you, but maybe you're going to reclaim your home shortly thereafter, for those of you that don't rent into the fall. So getting close. Something different for today. Zoom has a feature to ask a few poll questions. Just always curious amongst the group of people, 30 or so people here today, just a couple questions for you. You'll see it come up, and let's just see how this works. It's a 3-question, just quick polling. Let's see how this goes. Feel free to answer this. Curious if you have reclaimed your home already or will do so soon. And then also looking out into the future, have you entered your pricing and raised your pricing or not? Or undecided? And do you have confirmed any bookings for next year? Are the bookings coming from repeats and or new guests? Let this run. Once you answer the questions, I believe it goes away and you'll be back on the screen. And then I can actually share the results with you. So I can see the results as they go, which is kind of cool.
Very clever.
Now, one more thing to get started, and then we'll open it up to our usual questions is, as I mentioned, we did pull together, now that we're in September, we pulled together numbers for the end of the summer. How did things look? And we've shown some of these numbers. I think I look back in mid-July, we had shown the numbers. I'm going to share my screen here. Share screen. So back in July, we had looked at some of these numbers, and we had looked at this chart here. And this chart shows a staggering representation of the impact of COVID. And it's not surprising to see the dip that we all saw back in starting in March into April, and then the spike that occurred really around May 18th when Governor Baker announced that the reopening phase plan would occur. And then again on June 8th, I believe, you can see another spike occurred in early June, and it really just stayed there throughout the summer. June, July were record numbers. You've likely been the benefit of those inquiries. Almost some people receiving so many inquiries, it was hard to respond to all of them in a timely manner. But I don't think we'll see this sort of trend again. I hope it's certainly going to have a good impact on the vacation rental industry in itself. You have a lot of new vacationers that have never rented before. They have now ventured into the vacationing in a rental, so they're likely to come back. I'm hoping that what this looks like is, rather than this huge spike at the end, starting in June, July, August, that this is spread out over the course of the year. So we'll see what happens, but certainly these numbers show, and I think here's a summary on the next slide just to show the percentages. There we go. And this was the highs and the lows of this year. We started off strong. You know, when we look at percentage increases, when we see 5-10% increase, that's great. We saw the high demand that started in January, February, and then the big dip, and then the rebound was more than a rebound. It really did explode. So overall, year to year, when we consider everything, the ups and downs, we're well over 100. We're over 100% in terms of the number of vacationers that have inquired on our site. This chart shows you the bookings, which weeks were booked. You will see here, we showed this chart last year in our forum last year, and we showed which weeks in gray, which weeks last year were the most popular, and those were what you would expect: end of July, beginning of August, where you were reaching 80-90% capacity. Here, it was pretty much when June opened up, starting with June 27th here, you're over 90%. And this got upwards of 97-98% filled on our calendars. And that's why vacationers during the summer, they were saying they can't find anything. If they were looking for a last minute rental for next week or 2 weeks out, they were really struggling to find a rental. And keep in mind, some of these rentals may have had out-of-date calendars. As much as we hate to see that, some of the availability may have been false availability. So again, hopefully this is a good trend that we'll look to see continue into next year as well. But I think the last time I showed this number, we were looking at the end of August. The end of August was available at 30 to 40%. And then now that I run the numbers, once we closed out the summer, you'll see that, again, the capacity came down to, or the booking percentage was up to 90% on even the end of the week. Looking ahead, did I go too far? No, looking ahead, fall bookings. Fall bookings are strong as well. We're still seeing strong activity on our site. That activity is going towards now, fall bookings for Labor Day and beyond into the fall. We're seeing activity for next summer, of course. And so the booking numbers that we're seeing already are really incredible to see. Again, probably not surprising. People are still looking to get away. They're not looking to travel long distances, just like in the summertime. So what's the best and easiest way to get a quick vacation right now, or quick getaway, whether it's couples or families before school starts? It's going to be traveling local. So that's where we see that big jump. We can't determine on the long-term demand side of things, we can't determine the number of bookings that occur long-term. We don't have that information, but what we can see is the activity on our site. We have a long-term rentals page, and the activity to get to that page, the views on that page, people are searching, they're searching through Google. We can see they're coming through well over 300% increase in the number of people looking for long-term rentals, and long-term being a month or more, this fall, winter, multiple months in a row. And then on our site specifically, we're seeing that people are searching for 2 weeks, a month or more on our site, and the inquiries are just, increased incredibly. We've talked about it in previous weeks. That's not for everybody a long-term rental, but if it is something that you are open to, the demand is there. And then finally, the last one here is inquiries for next summer. I was pulling together numbers on the inquiries that were occurring during the summer, during June, July, and August. Here we are in the middle of the summer, and people are already looking for next summer. So these are all inquiries for a year in advance. And I was actually intrigued to see that the inquiries actually dipped from last year during the summer for the following year. And the reason I can only explain for that is there is going to be some hesitation. There's likely some hesitation on the unknown of what the current situation is going to be with the pandemic. Is it going to be safe to travel? Is it safe to book this far in advance? And so I think, Joan, your reaction to, what are some countermeasures to that, booking this far in advance?
We're getting questions from homeowners, and I can see people posing these questions on our community Facebook page as well. What do I do about cancellation policies for next summer? Obviously, after this summer, vacationers don't know what to expect. And there's a very good chance that, this pandemic could still be with us next summer, although, we hope by then we'll have, much better control. I mean, it's not going to repeat this summer, but still, vacationers are nervous about booking a home, although they're anxious to do it because many of them missed out this summer. And so I think it's in homeowners' best interest to be a little more relaxed with your cancellation policy, or at least let them know that this is my normal cancellation policy. If I can rebook it, I'll give all of your money back and rebook it at the same price, etc. But if there is any kind of a restriction, if you can't get here because there's been a ban or maybe something in your state, or you can't fly here, or anything like that, a physical problem, I think if you just reassure them that you're not going to hold a hard line on the cancellation policy and say, sorry, that's the way it is. They will not want to book your home if it's too stringent a cancellation policy. It's just a whole new ball game right now. And I think too many people the vacationers are just a little anxious about next summer. So we're going to, do some more work on that, and probably maybe write up a few scenarios that, that you could add to your lease, some kind of an addendum, or just this is our normal cancellation policy, but if these things occur, we will refund your money. So we'll be working on that. The other thing is, and this isn't about next summer, but if you're getting some inquiries now for off season and for longer term, a month or more, be sure to read our blog posts about that, and really do your homework. I think we've talked about this before, and Beta is in the process of writing another blog post about, just the cautionary steps that you should take. I've heard from homeowners this summer who rented long-term, even in the summer, for a month or more, and there were some unfortunate situations where the vacationers weren't able to get there ahead of time and see the home, and they got there, and normally if they were only there for a week, they would, okay, that's, not what I expected, but we're here for a week, we'll live with it. But if they're there for a long term, they're not going to just live with it. They're going to be asking a lot of questions and asking for repairs or additional things, and maybe even complain. And we have had a couple of examples of vacationers who have arrived and wanted to leave. So it's, there are a lot of things to consider with that. Also, along those lines, the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce has started a new campaign. They're calling it the Second Summer on the Cape and Islands, and they're putting a lot of money into this campaign. Digital signs on the Mass Pike and in the Hartford area to encourage vacationers to come to the Cape and Islands in September and October. And I think there's a good reason behind this. Although, we've all done well, businesses such as restaurants and activities have not. And they're really struggling to make up for some of that lost revenue, restaurants in particular. So be ready for probably more inquiries if you're willing to accept them.
I think that maybe those inquiries that you might get even for this fall, right? I think for this fall or for next summer, planning in advance, going back to the cancellation policy, some vacationers need an incentive to feel comfortable in booking, especially for next summer. If you're talking about next summer again, even a repeat guest to confirm now that they want to book your home. Some repeat guests, they've been there for 3, 4, 5 years, they're coming back, but somebody that just stayed one time and one time last year, what's their incentive to stay versus to look around? Maybe they got something last minute and booked your home this year, so maybe they do want to explore a little bit more. But when you reach out to them, and hopefully if you haven't already and you're planning to do so in the next month or two as you figure out what your plans are for next summer, do define what your cancellation policy is in advance. And as Joan recommended, think about how flexible you want to be, especially early on. You got to do a cancellation policy that works for you, but realize that an incentive to relax that cancellation policy is a great incentive to get somebody to book this far in advance. The last thing, I closed the slide, but the last point I wanted to make is to highlight about pricing and the fact that of all the inquiries that are going out for next summer, 70% of those inquiries are going towards listings that have already set up their availability. Your home is going to be found more clearly if your home has availability and your pricing for next summer in it. People may still find your home through a more broad search, but those listings that are already prepared for next summer with their pricing and availability are more likely to receive an inquiry. So just another push to get those calendars up to date. So, what else? Anything else, Joan?
Well, Jay Singer was mentioning that he wasn't going to allow his past tenants to have quite as much time this year to respond in terms of whether they're going to book next summer. And I think many people in the past have always said, okay, January 1st. But that might be a little too liberal, and you may want to not wait until then to hear from your past tenants. I think there are a number of ways to do it, but I would get your calendar up there. And what I do is in booking management, I have those people who have expressed a desire to come back, but I don't have any money yet. I don't have the lease. I just mark it as tentative. So if I get, and by tentative, it's on booking management. It's not on your calendar. It does not show tentative. It still shows available. So if I get an inquiry for a week that has either already been spoken for, but it's still tentative, or I think that a long-term tenant might want it, I'll go to that past guest and just say, I have an inquiry for the week that you had last year. Are you interested? And if they can't commit, then I might just go with the new one. It's just a bird in the hand. Unless it's someone that has been with you, many years, and in that case, it's almost a given that they'll be coming back.
Well, and it's fair to tell them that this last summer saw record demand, and you're seeing increased demand, and that's the reason for needing to confirm earlier. You give them a certain amount of heads up that you feel comfortable with, but certainly, as Joan said, I wouldn't wait till January. There are a lot of logistics that need to be filled out, especially if you're on the islands. Beta, how long do you give your returning guests to decide? I know the islands have ferries that open up at a certain time, and so do you give any extra consideration for being on the Vineyard?
For canceling, you mean?
No, for reaching out. When do you reach out to your guests?
Oh, in the beginning.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I don't wait long. I do pretty much in the fall, and it kind of depends on the situation, but my theory all along has always been, I open up my calendar. I don't want to lose those leads. And then if I get an inquiry for a week that somebody had rented this year and had indicated somehow that they might be wanting to come back, I'll check with them then. But I think a lot of our homeowners are so protective of their repeats that
Sure.
they actually, to a fault, I think that they actually, they could be turning down business because they don't open it up soon enough. So, but yeah, I don't know if I'm any different than the Cape. I'm curious what other islanders might do.
Well, it just gets trickier with the ferries. So you just don't want to wait too long. I just thought
we can't get last minute bookings. We can't get last minute bookings the way as easily
Right.
as on the Cape, but I think the issues are still the same. It's not really easy for homes on the Cape necessarily get a last minute book, depending on how big the house is and so forth too.
Yeah. I just saw an interesting question on the chat, and from Karen, who said she's thinking of going with a 2 to 3 week minimum stay. I think at this point in time, if you would really love to have a 2-weeker or a 3-weeker, I'm not sure I'd do 3 weeks. That's a long time. I mean, you certainly could put it out there as minimum stay of 2 weeks for now. And then when the season really gets going and, January, February, you don't have, you could then open it up for 1-weekers. People who are looking for longer term tend to look early. So by then you may have gotten the longer term people that you're going to get. So I think you could certainly start that way, but just realize that you're not going to be necessarily saving money in terms of cleaning. So I wouldn't give too much of a break in the rent, if at all. If experience shows us that the longer someone's there, the the worse the house looks at the end of their stay. And house cleaners just they'd say, I can't do this. I can't prepare the house in the amount of time you've given me, 6 hours or whatever between guests, to clean a house that hasn't been cleaned or looked at in a month, or even 2 weeks is a long time. So you'll need to send someone in the meantime.
Can I jump in, Joan? It's Douglas L. I make a point on that. Okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, about the long term. A couple of years ago, one of our regular people that came every single year for the last 10 years did a 5-week in the summer. And I was like, oh, that's great. Because they didn't expect a discount. They paid the regular price, right, for every week. And I thought, this is great. I'll save on my housekeeper. Well, that was a big mistake. Because by the time it was done, just like you said, it was only a couple people. It was my housekeeper just went nuts over the whole thing, charged me more money, plus there were damages. So I think if you're going to do a long term, you should at least do a housekeeper every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Make it a royal rule that we've got to have the housekeeper come in while you're there every 2 weeks. I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we had a couple situations this summer, which we've never had before, because whenever we've had even a 2-week rental, I have it cleaned every Saturday. We had a 3-week rental and a 2-week rental, and they did not want any cleaning, pointed at COVID. And I will never rent again more than a week without a cleaning.
Yeah.
Because we always have done, even with our 2-week rentals, had it cleaned every week.
Yep.
And if somebody doesn't want to do that, they don't need to come, because it's just not worth, worth the frustration.
Right.
Totally agree.
I agree. And it gives you the opportunity, or at least your cleaners, who are your spies, to check out the home and see if it'd probably be a mess, because that's what vacationers do. But at least, you'll see if there's anything that really is disturbing, in terms of damage or how they're treating your home. So that's important. And in terms of who's going to pay, you can pay for it, or you can ask them to pay for it, or you could split it. But one way or the other, I agree with that it should be done at least every 2 weeks, if not, every week if they're there for 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, I think at this time we'll certainly, I think we're in the opening it up to Q&A mode anyways. We've seen a few questions in here. I can't guarantee I can get to all the questions in the chat. I know Beta's following if there's anything specific to follow up with, but feel free to raise your hand virtually in the list, and you can take your questions. I did see a question here that I will address regarding Home to Go. A Home to Go question came in regarding the availability of their listing on visibility in Home to Go. And we talked a lot about Home to Go last week or a couple weeks ago, and how they are providing some additional visibility. It's a aggregate site for those that weren't on the call. It's an aggregate site that takes listings from various sites, and they gave us a good boost in visibility, vacationers, and opportunity now for us to use those vacationers next year to market to. In terms of your calendar, your listing getting onto Home to Go, if you are active, you're on Home to Go, provided that your calendar is up to date. And it does need to be up to date within 30 days. I think the question here, now that we're on September 2nd, was updated as of August 4th. I believe, I just got an email from Home to Go this morning. They may have had an issue with updating the feed itself, but so that it may be out of date by a couple days. But in general, as long as your listing is up to date, your calendar is up to date and has been updated within the last 30 days, you'll get that additional exposure. And so during the time when your calendar may not be updated as frequently during the fall, it is important to go in and make sure that it is updated regularly in order to get that additional exposure. I'm not sure who asked that question, but I will double check on your listing who asked that question. Peter, I will follow up on that. I will check your listing out specifically to see where you are. All right, the other question that came in before I grab the hands here was a question on, Joan, I'm gonna let you tackle the one. It is about bugs. What was that? Somebody here, they found roaches, and I'm not sure if that is roaches or you've had the discussion about roaches and whether to give a refund or not, or if so, what's your recommendation?
Vacationers freak out and they report to their homeowner, we have cockroaches, and cockroaches have such a terrible reputation and they probably deserve it. These are not cockroaches. I don't believe that there are cockroaches on the Cape. I could be wrong, but I, checked with the whatever official organization, agricultural something or other, and so I have some documentation on that. But wood roaches are harmless bugs that don't really want to be inside the house. They get in when there's light outside or when people have, doors opening and closing all the time. And so that is, it's harmless and it doesn't spread disease. It's just but it's got unfortunately it has a name that, people connote that with. And I think they look a little like cockroaches. So, the bugs are, we do have bugs on the Cape and insects, and so it's always best to have your home and some kind of a pest control so that you can tell anyone, I will send in my pest control people if there is an infestation, but I think it's probably not a bad idea to have somebody do that. Beta, you're always big on the pest control front.
Yeah, I'm such an old Yankee that I hate to part with a nickel, so I don't like spending money on it, but quite a few years ago realized that that's really the way to go, to have a professional exterminator come in, and if there are any problems, I've mentioned this to you guys before, if there are any problems, they come back, I think even without charge. And it's just to be able to say to Gordon, the person that you have complaining and demanding money back, and you can say, hey, I've had it professionally exterminated or professionally treated. It just gives you a lot more, bugs will come in, like Joan said, with a door open. So you can't, if you're in the country, there's nothing you can do about bugs. But if you can say that your home's been professionally treated, it really makes a big difference. I did just post two links to two of the blog posts that we've written about bugs. One was "Eek a cockroach, or is it?" I think that Joan wrote, and then I think I had written one a while ago, "Getting bugged about bugs." So I think, Gordon, you'll find that those will be helpful in just figuring out how to respond to this person. Remember, Joan, the one where they said it was raining spiders?
Oh yes. Yep. Yeah. And the homeowner gave $1,000 back against my better judgment. Yeah, raining spiders.
A little high.
I mean, you have to be careful about bugs. You have to treat ants can be a problem, and it's legitimate. I wouldn't want to show up, Jim. You show up in homes, you probably wouldn't be too happy having your young family there with bugs. But on the other hand, the Cape and Islands is a country, rural place, and you're just gonna have bugs.
I'll tell you my experience. I showed up at a home that I rented for the third time in a row this year. They had ant traps out this year. I don't remember them seeing them the previous 2 years. I didn't see any ants, which is a good thing, but I also, I did see the ant traps. Clearly they were there for a reason. To me, it doesn't, unless there's an infestation, it doesn't bother me. I'd rather see some sort of effort to tackle an issue than kind of be oblivious to it. So I didn't mind it. I think I would have minded if they started crawling around my food in the kitchen, but again, many people live with that. So I think you got to take it case by case. And in Joan's example of that tenant or that guest getting $1,000 back seems a little high. So I would say be proactive on assessing whether there's an issue there or if there's some sort of pest control that you can do in advance. All right, let's go. We got a bunch of questions lined up here. I'm going to just take them in order. So Doug and then Cynthia. Doug, who's not in his workshop.
Wow, what happened?
Where are you, Doug?
I'm on our Cape House.
Oh, very good. You're back.
We're taking our vacation, so
There
it's
you go.
fantastic.
Good.
Yeah.
Let 'em out of
So I hope I can make this short, but it has to do with a few Zooms ago. I mentioned that we had a possibility of a long-term rental, right?
Mhm.
And I was kind of warned in many different ways about that. But I want to bring up a subject because I've been scammed once in my life, and it had to do with the house. It happened to me maybe 7 or 8 years ago. It was somebody from Europe when I was VRBO, and this person was so wonderful. It was all email communication. Some like really nice lady. They ingratiated himself beautifully. Then he sent me a bank check for the deposit, and the day I got it in the mail, she called me back. She said, "Oh my gosh, all our plans have changed. I'm so sorry. I'd already deposited the check that day," right? The next day I look at my bank and it has cleared. She asked for a refund, so I do a money order by whatever that's, electronic thing, right? So, and send it to her. I come back home that night, and there's on my bank account, it says it's bounced.
Yeah.
I go, wow, did I get scammed,
Mhm.
right? So the thing is, I'm bringing this up because recently I had this wonderful lady, I had a conversation with her, plus text messages about renting for the from November through the end of April. And it sounded great. I talked to my wife, and the day after that, I called her back. I said, "Look, today's my wife's birthday. That's a Saturday. Can I communicate with you on Monday about a conversation?" She said, "Sure." This is all texted, so I knew she texted. And then I text her and about getting together, maybe perhaps on a Zoom. Absolutely no answer whatsoever on it, right? So my wife is very sensitive about this. She said, "Ask this question. Yeah, if anybody wants to answer this, just in case, I don't want anybody else to get screwed on this. Anybody have a booking?" Because she didn't use our house, she may have used yours. Christine Johnson Duell. Christine Johnson Duell, looking for a full rental. No? Okay. All right. So I'm just concerned, because sometimes these things happen really, really not, because these people are professional, are really good at this stuff. So you never know. I'm not accusing her. I'm just saying perhaps something came up with her life, but I'm just bringing it up as a possibility. That's all I want to mention.
Yeah.
Thanks, Doug. If you don't mind, if you have an email or phone number, if you could send it to us.
I will. I'll send it to your office.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And we'll take a look.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
But certainly good advice to just checks need to clear. Maybe what do you do? Give it a couple days, I have
heard that it appears to have cleared, even
really
the bank
hasn't.
might say it has, but it really hasn't, so.
Right.
Yeah.
But the advice, Doug, on especially a long-term tenant, a phone call at a minimum, but a Zoom these days should be also, you're asking a tenant or guest
Standard.
looking to stay in your home for 6 months.
Yeah.
The least you can do is a Zoom call face-to-face, and be
Yeah.
sure, and it's a good thing for you to do anyways.
Right, because they're staying at parents in off the island in Massachusetts, and they could have come out here while we're here to meet us too and see the house.
Right.
There was all these possibilities, and then it was like zero. So I didn't know something came up in their life and it changed. But usually people, if they're good people, they're going to say, "I'm so sorry, our plans have changed. Something came up." Thank you so much for your time. Well,
Right, yep.
I can't resist putting in another plug for online payments. You know, those checks, when we're talking about in September, October for the next year are one thing, but even then, you know, to avoid a scam like that, you have those electronic payments, you know, the moment that hits your account, those are good funds. So I don't know.
Yep.
And
It's not
I'll just
that I
chime
say
in.
not to use checks, but those online payments when they're free now and so widely used and so safe.
Right.
Just
well, the post office has also not been very reliable lately.
No, exactly.
You
Mhm.
know.
So
Yep.
we got a lot of, let's keep going. I think, Karen, I saw you jump in. Did you have a comment on this?
I just wanted to say this summer I insisted on speaking with everybody who wanted to rent via the phone, and it completely weeded out people that I were suspicious that were scammers, because of course they never call. So there's your, you know, if you insist on a phone call, you kind of weed them out right there.
Yeah.
Good
perfect.
for you.
Yeah,
Good
I
for
would
you. We've
never-
said that for so long.
Even under the best of circumstances, I do not rent to anybody that I haven't spoken to. And it's not because I suspect that they're scamming me, although that's certainly possible. But it's more because, you know, why not? You want to know that your home is a good fit for them. And so they get to ask all their questions, you get to ask your questions, and you can base your decision on some of their questions. If they're asking all these little picky things and and you have suspicions that they're not going to be satisfied no matter what my house looks like, then you'll know and you can, you know, kind of bow out. So important.
Invaluable.
Cynthia, you're up next here. And then,
Okay. Hi, everybody.
hi, Cynthia.
Hi.
Hey, thanks for everything that you do. Okay. I just wanted to chime in what everyone was saying about reaching out to people. I was very successful all summer. I got all my rentals in, and I actually took a week for myself, for my daughter and the kids before she goes back to work. Everyone, the last minute people called me up, and they did the they did the Zelle and PayPal. I had no problems at all. I was very, very happy with that. But one thing I want to bring up, I think Elizabeth answered on the chat. I was there last Sunday. My garbage company, Bruno, that's on the Cape, they didn't pick up my garbage 2 weeks in a row. So I called them, long story short, the driver was new. He didn't know that my house was down the street in this wooded area. Because I went and I called them and they said, oh, we'll bring somebody to come in. Anyway, the guy came on like Saturday, picked up the garbage, very happy. Sunday morning, I'm leaving, well, about ready to leave, and I had my little bit of garbage left. I looked in my can, somebody dumped garbage in my can. It was full to the max. So I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I'm just curious if anybody ever had that issue. Now, I have my can on like street side. It's like the road is all rocks and stuff. So I'm wondering if I should put my can like in the back. But I could not believe that someone actually did that. And I'm just wondering if anybody ever had that situation.
I think, Cynthia, it's because I don't know that there are a lot of other towns that charge money like Edgartown does to take trash.
Yeah, I mean, it really sucked. I had to end up paying my landscaper, who's like my handyman, had to get him to go get the garbage because I had renters coming in, and I didn't want to start them with a big can full of some garbage.
Yeah, right.
So I guess no one had that problem.
Well, it sounds like you had a double whammy of the trash, Bruno's not coming to get the trash as they were supposed to. And then somebody just saying, oh, this will save me a trip to the dump and $5 I won't have to pay to get rid of this trash. You're lucky it wasn't like a mattress or something.
Oh, God.
Well, hopefully it's a one-time thing, Cynthia.
Yeah.
So
First, I haven't heard of that. I've heard of every story, but not that one.
All right, let's keep going. Thank you, Cynthia.
you're welcome.
Let's move on. We got Ken Johnson, and then Ken.
Gordon keeps wanting to say something. He has his hand up forever.
Who does?
Yeah, please.
Gordon.
All right,
Gordon, yes.
I still haven't had my question answered.
Oh,
It was
go ahead.
not only roaches, but also mice. And I'm asking if there's a standard practice, does one rebate anything because of an unexpected incident like those? What's the practice, or is there one?
He's asking more, I think, what is the common way to handle it in terms of a refund? And Gordon, I didn't answer that because it's so particular to how much rent you charge. And I don't know, I think that's a very personal decision as far as how much you would refund somebody. Joan, what would you do if
your guests, if I understand correctly, Gordon, your guests have asked for a refund. So they've left, but they're now asking for a refund.
Right.
So
now we had given them a break on they took it for 2 weeks. We gave them a $500 break on taking it for 2 weeks. So that was that wasn't a refund, but it was a break. And I'm just not quite sure whether, is there any experience of people when a refund is asked for saying, well, yes, here's so-and-so, but how much is a reasonable refund?
Right. Well, at what point did they complain about mice?
Mm-hmm.
How far into their 2-week stay?
Yes, there were mice during their 2 weeks. We have had mice there for about 10 years and roaches never. So we were quite surprised and told them that.
Did you?
No, but when did they find the mice? Was it in the beginning of their stay or towards the end?
It was towards the end.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So they've had nearly 2 weeks there without mice.
Well, a week and a half, yeah.
Yeah.
The mice and the roaches. And the point is, our cleaner is fantastic. And when she came after they left, she said everything was in order. They hadn't left any messes or anything.
Yeah. Did you call in a pest control when they told you that there were mice?
No, we simply the guy asked if we would have someone bring by a roach strip, and I said, why don't you just get them? We have no one who can do that. And he did, and they caught a few, but that was it. I didn't think of having pest control coming while they were there. And first of all, it would take, they had like 3 days to go, I think, in the rental.
Yeah.
So
I would think if you're proactive about it and treat the situation and it's not disruptive, like there aren't mice running into the kitchen, I don't know if you're obligated to provide anything. I think it's more of just treating this guest experience. Do you want them to return? Do you want to just alleviate this? If it is starting to get into a sticky situation,
right.
You have to start to consider what's it worth to you.
And they may write a negative review, which you can respond to, but no one likes to have a negative review on their listing. I might just offer a couple $100 and just say, for the inconvenience of that, and we're really sorry, but some gesture.
You were saying $100, yeah.
Well, a couple of $100 maybe. I don't know how much you charge for your home.
Tell me also, can you send us the name of a pest control person on the Cape?
Sure. Where's your home? Where's your home, Gordon?
Wellfleet.
Okay. I will look it up and I'll be in touch with you.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
It's property 9299, I think it is.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Gordon.
You guys can all access the home services directory too, to see businesses in your area that pest control is one of them.
Yep. I'll be in touch.
Yep. All right, let's move on. Kenneth Johnson and then Ken Rubin. So Ken Johnson here first.
Hi, it's Cindy Johnson.
Hi, Cindy. I always know that.
Yeah. Okay, just a couple of comments on it. Is one thing on the scam. That scam was very, very popular about 7-8 years ago on HomeAway. And HomeAway would tell you exactly what it was. I used to be a banker. Anytime you get something like that, it says it clears. It's really teeth +3. You should always wait for a while. Never send back a check right away when somebody does something like that. Wait at least a week. Double check your bank, call them up, make sure that it's good funds. That was a very regular one coming out of Russia and the bloc countries.
And internationals take 3 days.
Internationals.
Not the domestics can clear quickly.
But the internationals, it's 3 days.
You're making me feel
one-
even more like a dummy. Thank you.
Sorry, Bob.
You're an educated man now.
One thing that we do is that we don't take anybody for more than 2 weeks. We did do it once for a month in June, and we insisted that they had 3 weeks of cleaning, and they pay for the cleaning, not me. And they took care of the house, but I would never rent for more than 2 weeks. The house takes too much of a hit in the summer, in July and August, to rent to any longer term. I would never rent off season because there are horror stories on the Vineyard about not getting them out of there, especially on the islands, because so many of these people move. They have one place for the summer rental, the locals, one place for the summer rentals, and then they move on to another place, and you can't get them out.
It's on the Cape too.
We had
but-
that instance. But it's really prevalent on the
You
islands.
lose a whole season now.
You lose a whole season on it.
Yeah.
Also, one thing that we are doing now is we take 1 week for ourselves in July and 1 week for ourselves in August. As good as cleaners are, you really want to get in there yourself. And I find especially this year is that a lot of people cooked a lot more. We have a big house and in Edgartown, and a lot of people cooked, and dishes and everything were all over the kitchen. It wasn't broken or anything, but it was just the house is disorganized because of people just didn't go out to eat this year like they usually do.
Dividers in one of our cabinets that hold up all the different carving boards and all were found in the screen porch used as platters.
Oh.
So anything can happen.
Yeah, and so I think
these are
I think
first-time
we just
renters.
have to-
We're getting a lot of first-time coming to this game first.
They're used to staying at the big high-end hotels, and renting a house, as we all know, is no matter how much you pay for it, is a different ball game. And so even though you might be charging an awfully lot of money, it doesn't mean that people are going to really respect their house.
Yeah.
Sure.
For first-time renters can be problematic. Not that you're not going to rent to them, but if they've only stayed in a hotel where they just close the door behind them and they've never been asked to do anything, you have a list, obviously, of things that need to be done, but they don't always do it. And so it's, they're on a learning curve, and they need to, they need to know that it is not a hotel and that there are certain things that they need to do in terms of preparing.
And maybe that's a valid question to ask your guests as they inquire, as they book your home, is ask them if they've stayed in a rental before. And
I
understand.
do that.
Yeah.
I do that, and I insist on speaking with everyone. That's why I don't rent on VRBO when they took or Home Away, when they took away the ability to speak with a person before you book. I said no more. I speak on the phone with everyone before I rent, and that is one of the questions I ask, is because you want to find out whether it's a good fit for them or not.
Right.
And
Right.
Also
Also ask if they've ever been to your part of the Cape or Islands before, and are familiar with it.
right.
So much as possible if you can speak with your prospect.
Right.
And you
Much better
simply must.
idea.
We won't rent to anybody we can't talk to.
Yep. I'm the same way.
The other thing you wanted to mention about the a re-up policy. Real early in the point, Jeff, you talked about the re-up policy and being when people are going to, some of our new ones are definitely going to want to go next year. We're already getting that. But we already have our regulars who do it all the time. Our policy has always been to push them very early to re-up. So, and the ones who really know and have been with us 8 or 9 years, they'll do it immediately. Well, you get a signed lease by the end of September. And we just do the regular charging in
A third
in right up front. And that's the kind of money in there, rather than like $100 or $200, which is basically chicken feed if people want to cancel. There's always the chance that some of these new folks, now that they've enjoyed this thing, they may want to go back to Europe and other travel they used to do, but they'll book your place. They'll book your place preemptively, thinking I can cancel out, and it's just $100. What do I care?
Yeah.
So you don't really want to do that. You have to have them put the skin back in the game.
Because you're in your answer to the islands, most people do want to book fairly early on because they know the mid-January they've got to book their ferry tickets.
Right.
So they want to get their house before that is the case for people in the know. And they're all very happy to pay a third or a half of it right up front on a signed lease.
There we are.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Cindy.
you.
Ken. I think, let's see. All right,
What happened to Ken Rubin?
Ken Rubin, I'm not, if you raise your hand again, if you want to jump on, I'm going to go to Greg here. Hi, Greg.
Couple comments. Hi, how you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Good. A couple comments. To deal with this good fund situation, I make it very clear in the agreement that the agreement is subject to the receipt of good funds and verification as such. With all the banking issues of checks clearing, Venmo, PayPal, everybody else has got their finger in it. I just have a general statement that I have the right to determine if this contract is good or not. I don't do that than any other method, because if the money's not in my account and it's good, then it's really no deal until then. I've had people tell me they're going to send money, they don't, this and that. A lot of people play games with you. The second thing is that on the scam business, a lot of this stuff has come out of Europe and Nigeria, and I had a couple near misses with them, but after a while, when you can tell in the communication you receive from these people that they're disingenuous about what they're intending to do. Their ideas, how much time they love long rentals. They love long rentals. And I think when you enter the game of renting more than 2 weeks, you're almost into you're putting yourself into a situation where you're limiting your rentals, if you say minimum 2 weeks or whatever is necessary to run your home. I think you're kind of closing down a lot of options and you're creating new challenges. There are a lot fewer people that want long rentals than short rentals. And I think we'll always do well in the short rental market. But going into the longer term situation creates tenancy issues. We've been talking about rodents and insects today. Insects can appear overnight. And it's my policy, if it's helpful to you folks, has been be really congenial with these people. If they're really irate about it, I'll get them like $100 gift certificate at a popular local restaurant. And that usually does the trick, if you're reasonable about it. Actually giving people sums of money back for a subjective opinion as to whether or not something was right in their eyes or not, you're never going to win that game. Never. Everybody always has an opinion, a different definition of the word clean. When there's a thorough job done between tenants and the place is clean and then they think it's not clean, you're starting off on the wrong foot altogether. And it's too late to unwind it and send people home and everything else. I just think it's a terrible situation to get involved in. I try to be as cordial as possible and kind of like dodge the issue and try to make it good for them. And that has worked 99% of the time for me.
Yep.
They may not come back because of it, but at least you get through that year.
Right.
Okay.
No, I think very good advice, and I think that a gesture of some sort, where we have problems with guests is if they say, I reported this to the homeowner and they just said, oh, okay, duly noted, or, we'll look into it, or, you have to respond and you have to be empathetic and do some kind of a gesture like Greg had mentioned. The other thing that he mentioned.
Mention one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to mention one more thing. I use the off season to deal with rodent issues. There's no way you're going to get away from a mouse or two getting into a house. You just don't want to be dealing with that issue during the rental period, because if you do put out poison or anything else, you may get an odor from it. You got to send someone in to check the traps if you're not there. From the time my rental season closes in the fall till spring, that's when I really focus on that kind of thing, because I think you can stay ahead of the curve if you really are proactive about it.
Mhm. Yep.
Good point. Thanks, Greg. All right, I think with that, I mean, as you head into the off season, many of you are renting out throughout the fall, but you'll claim them at some point during the fall. Use that off season. I think it is a good point to use the off season, the winter or spring, before rentals open up again. I mean, I'm sure many of you do this. If you're staying there, you have the opportunity to stay. Joan and Beta, you always say, stay in every bed in the house. You know, so what is it like? What's it like for your guests to stay in the bed the bedroom you never use? You know, for Cindy, or was it, I believe it was Cindy who said they take 2 weeks during the summer. You have the luxury of what's it like during the summer there for your guests. So you get that experience directly to be able to assess. We had issues with air conditioning and fans this summer for some folks. We talked about that the last couple of weeks. So, you know, take that opportunity in the off season to spruce up whatever your home might need. And I think a couple negative reviews have come in recently that the first thing on the negative review was that the home was not as advertised, and it usually refers back to the pictures. The pictures are out of date. They're out of date for what the house looks like. The pictures are 5 to 10 years old. Just because you've had those pictures forever, take a look. If you've replaced certain items, large identifiable items, a couch, you know, bedspreads, retake the photo. It's not going to take much, but retake the photo and make it new, and set up your listing for the next year.
So, I'd like to give you a heads up and thank you for that, because we use your photographer. I think her name was Patty.
Becky.
Patty was her name?
Becky.
What?
Becky.
Becky. She was spectacular. We're so happy with Becky. So I really, anybody who wants to use Becky, please do. She's great.
She's awesome.
Glad to hear it.
Want to tell them who Becky is?
Well, that Becky's my sister, so we'll have her jump on a call. Give some photography tips as well.
We know her well.
With this, I think with I think our time has run here. And I think what we said at the beginning of the meeting, for any that joined a little bit later, we are going to pause these weekly meetings, and we're going to determine what sort of frequency these meetings should continue. We do like talking with everybody here, getting your input. So we do want to have these in some fashion throughout the course of the year. We may be going to just a different frequency, at least during this fall. We're also, as Joan mentioned, talking about what do our forums become, since they are going to be virtual. And so we're going to be putting our heads together over the next week or two, and we'll publish a schedule for what we are going to be doing with that. So Joan, Beta, anything else to add?
Just as I did on the chat, I would just encourage all of you to take a look at the newsletter that we are scheduled to send out next Wednesday, I believe, the 9th. And there'll be, I know a number of you have questions about pricing, for example, and I just mentioned again that Joan will be writing an article about pricing your home for 2021. But there's some other interesting, one of them is about the unexpected results of long-term rentals that I know the Johnsons, I think it was one of you guys was talking about. So be sure to be on the lookout for that next week.
Hi, one comment I just wanted to make. It's
Sure.
Cindy. In regard to scamming, one thing I do with all of my clients, Google their name, look them up.
Yep.
Every single one of them I do that with. And you can find most of them out there. Check their address, check what they do, what they tell you, what their profession is. The other thing is be very careful of peculiar email addresses. They're real scam jobs when they're a very unusual email address. If they're not your AOL, your Gmail, your something, they're a very peculiar name. Be very leery of them.
Yeah,
that's
probably from another country.
Yes.
Well, you know, and you're going to get people from another country who are valid, but you know, you can see email addresses that just look a little wrong.
They're bad.
Or
They're
you'll get
scam
another communication from them with a different email domain, and that can't be right.
Yeah.
That's just something wrong.
Thank you.
Right.
Can we hire you guys as our personal attorneys?
We're
You don't
available.
want to.
We're available.
Patty, do you want to sneak in here? I see you raise
Yeah,
your
I had
hand.
a quick question. I just been
Sure, we'll take
thinking
one more.
about, we just have a, one bedroom, so we tend to get 2 adults and it's always worked out well. And all summer we rent for 1 or 2 weeks and that's worked out well. But I'm wondering going into the fall, I get a lot of inquiries. People want to come 2, 3, 4 days. And, one of my worries is, I do the cleaning and people come in right after, and I'm not sure with COVID how good or bad this is. You kind of, most of mine were repeats this summer and I know them and they're retired and they're home, but I'm sensing these ones that want to come for maybe 3 days, 2, 3, 4 days, they're out there possibly working. I didn't know if you have feelings about this or.
Patty, you're not going to get people for 3 or 4 days back to back to back. So if you have, let's say in a given period of 2 or 3 weeks, you have some short-term renters, they depart one day, don't even go in there for a day. And then the following day you can go in and you could do the cleaning, and then maybe the following day somebody could come. So
well, that's a good point. I have had back-to-backs. I've had people do that, but that is a good point. Yeah, depending when they want to come or go.
And Patty, if you have back-to-backs, I imagine, just take the proper precautions that anybody would do, wearing the mask and washing your hands after you go in and opening the windows. Just take the proper precautions, and I think a turnover in a given day is fine. If you want to lengthen it to a 6 hour instead of a shorter time, go for 6, 8 hours in between stays.
Yeah, I've not been too worried this summer with it because, like I said, all of mine are repeats. They're all like retirement age. They're working from home or not working, so it's worked out. But I wondered if you've gotten feedback on that or people are worried about that. No, okay.
I don't think so.
Particularly.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. I think overall we've heard that the summer has gone well. We really haven't had situations. We've heard one guest of a home where a tenant came down with COVID, and that was due to getting exposed outside before they even came. So we have not heard of any issues. I think the summer has gone better than what we would have expected when we were starting off reopening rentals back in May. So I think we're in a good situation as it comes to your rentals. Hopefully things progress continually and we have a good fall and good start to the planning for the next summer as well. So thank you everybody for joining for today. We'll be in touch about the next meeting and what our forums will look like, and we'll talk. See you next time. Yeah, talk soon and see you next time.